minutes and then I gotta run.
Hello, brilliant souls. Welcome to Rainbows and Real Life, the show dedicated to bringing positivity to the forefront, celebrating the power and promise of the human spirit, and supporting each other in challenging times. We believe when we join together, we all live better lives, and we are exploring ways we can do that in today's ever-changing world. I'm Pamela Aubrey, and I'm here with my amazing co-host, Christopher Rauch, the No Excuses Coach.
What's up, beautiful? How are you?
So glad to be here with you.
You're looking radiant. You're absolutely looking radiant.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's going on with the radiance? Why the radiance? I see it. I see it beaming out of you. Not that you're not normally radiant, but I see it. I see a warm glow. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, can you see a warm glow coming from Pamela Aubrey? Yes.
I put on my warm glow powder before I came on. I think that's probably what's doing it.
Oh, do they have warm glow powder? Say that 10 times.
If they don't, they should. And I hope somebody takes that and creates it because it sounds awesome.
Makeup.
Warm glow powder, please. Yeah, a little bit more. Sprinkle it all around.
Yeah.
And we're super excited to be here with the audience because they're the most important part of the show. Am I correct?
The audience. Cindy, what's up, beautiful?
Thank you for being here, Cindy. Great to see you. She says, hello, beautiful friends.
Great to see you. Hope Mama's doing awesome.
Yes, exactly. And we're talking about transitions, life transitions. And so we've all been through some transitions in the last year or so, and we're still kind of going through some transitions. And we just want to talk about how do we do this in a positive way? How do we actually take transitions and use them to empower ourselves, essentially? So with that, I would love to hear from you, Christopher. What are some of your thoughts about empowering ourselves during transition?
I think this is a beautiful subject and obviously one that we need to all embrace right now. When I think about that, when you were just talking about it, because I don't give the show a lot of ideas, like before you send me the thing and I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about that. And then it's not until I get into the show where I really want to think about what it is that my heart's calling me to say. Yeah. And I think of transitions, honestly, as chapters in a book or a section in a book. You know, we all read the book and it's like, okay, we get to the next chapter. We want to keep reading. But sometimes we want to go back and reread that last chapter, but we can't reread the last chapter we can't read the next chapter if we're still reading the last chapter. And so I look at it for me in my life, in every situation I've been in. And this was very key for me up until my late 40s, where I was like trying to relive and trying to recreate my past, the fun times of my past. I was like, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. It was like, just because it was fun before, I thought it would be fun now. And then when Jackson was born, it really caused me to be more in the moments rather than in the past and trying to find those fun points. So now it was all about being in the moments and looking at that and saying, that was a great part of my life. That was a great, part of the people that I knew, the things that we did. But that part of my life is now kind of over. That's in the history books. That's something that has created me to be where I'm at today. But now I'm more focused on where it is that I'm going. So for me, transitions, sometimes they can be looked at as uncomfortable or awkward, or I really want to just stay where I'm comfortable. But to really live life, my thoughts are that you look at those transitions as beautiful opportunities to say, hey, thank you very much for that experience. And now here's where I'm at and here's where I'm going. So I think transitions are amazing because life without a transition is complacency. It's mediocrity. It's that settling. I was just talking about that with my coaching client the other night, and I said the word settling, and I said, when you start to settle for less than you deserve, you get less than you settle for. So for me, those are my initial thoughts on thinking about transitions. What about you? Because I know you've experienced a few transitions in your life. So as of high, so what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree with you that it's an opportunity, right? I mean, even in a challenging transition, it's an opportunity. Like you're saying, it gives you the opportunity to look back and reflect on things. It gives you that opportunity to see things maybe in a different way. Maybe you can be a little bit more objective. Like, sometimes we're in the midst of something, we're not able to be as objective about it as we are when we're a little bit more detached from it. And so being able to look back and say, what can I take away from some of those things, even if they were difficult, and how can I then use those and again, empower myself. And then not just here in the now, but going forward. And like you were saying, those are the things that build us into the people that we are today. And so just to honor that, to kind of, to me, it's almost like transition can be its own sacred space. It's like this place where we get to go and we get to pause for a moment and we get to reflect, but then we also get to look forward and sort of anticipate what could come and how we can create that. So
when you say that, Pam, it makes me think about the cocoon process that goes through with butterflies. I was just telling this story the other day, and I highly recommend each and every one of you to go out, and we got them on Amazon, but it's like a bucket of caterpillars or something like that. And you get 5 little caterpillar larvae, whatever you want to call them. And you watch them go through the entire process. You watch them become big caterpillars like we've all seen as little kids. And then the most amazing part is watching them create that cocoon. And then watching that process, they hang from the top of the little lid in the cup. Yeah. They literally attach themselves by this little thing and they hang there and they go through that transition. That transition to some people would look uncomfortable, like awkward. I don't want to be suffocated. I don't want to go through anything awkward or anything like that. But yet what we all know the result. And when you watch this metamorphosis, it is so amazing. I was just telling a story the other day, this last batch that we had, 2 of the butterflies had problems with their wings. So we let the other ones go and it was beautiful. We love it. But 2 stayed back because they weren't having problems flying. And so me being the animal lover that I am, I nicknamed them and everything and was taking them outside and giving them their fruit every day and was trying to make them fly and they wouldn't fly. And then one day he flew and I was like, oh my God, he flew. And then my heart broke for the other guy. I'm like, oh, he was messed up. I really
lost your friend.
I didn't really think he was going to fly. This is a true story. I was sad. Yeah. And his name was Kevin Bacon. That's not even a joke. The butterfly's name was Kevin Bacon. I'm hoping this gets back.
Dare I ask why?
Because I've told him a few times. Well, it's a running joke in our house that things are named Kevin Bacon. Okay. So then we had Kevin Bacon left over and I'm like, wow. And so I went on the internet and I'm like, is there anything I can do? There's not much you can do when their wings are like that. And I was like, all right. I said, but I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up because he needs that transition. He's a butterfly. He's supposed to fly. So every day I would go out there, send him in the sun. He would spread his wings and he would just hold them there. And I was like, oh, his wings look so beautiful, but you could see where they were torn. You could see where it wasn't, because he would try to fly and he was like one of those white butterflies that was all drunk. And it was like, oh man. And I didn't give up. And then one day I'm like, I'd rather see you fly for a few minutes and go somewhere than to stay in this cage the rest of your life. You were born to be a butterfly. You were born to fly. And then finally one day, swear to God, I have it on camera, which was crazy. I let him go and he started flying. I'm like, oh my God, Kevin Bacon's flying. And he was just like all over the place.
Love that.
I was like, oh my God, he's flying. And then I was trying to hold the phone to watch him. And then I lost him. I'm like, oh, what if he fell on the ground? What if the dog steps on him? What if the cat gets him? I'm like, where's Kevin Bacon? And I'm on the video, right? You can hear this. The video's going over like, where is he? And I'm like, and I literally said, Kevin Bacon, please come let me know that you're okay. I swear to God, I said this. And also I saw it and I was like, oh, I cut the video again. And then I was like, I really want to I just want to watch you fly away. And I couldn't see where he went. And I was just like, oh. And it like struck me. But again, those transitions, those uncomfortable times can create opportunities to go fly. That's my other take when you were saying that is like, we all have to fly. We all have to go through that cocoon process to go through those transitions. And sometimes whether we like it or not.
Yeah. I love what Cindy said earlier. She said, love transitions, change helps us grow. And I think that is so well said. I mean, we have to be able to take away the best of what's behind us and move that into what we want it to be in the future. Otherwise, we can't create what we really want. We can't experience what we really want. And that's really the only way to do that is through the experience of transition. Just like you're saying about the butterfly, when it's the caterpillar, it doesn't go into the cocoon knowing what's happening, right? It's just going through the process as it knows to go through it. And yet it still comes out this beautiful, amazing thing. And I think that's the experience that we have oftentimes too, going into transition. We have no idea what it's going to look like. We have no idea what we're going to come out looking like on the other side, right? Or what our experience is going to be. And yet, we go through it and then we realize, okay, I went through that and here are the good things that come from it. Mm-hmm. And I love this too. Cindy says, I've just learned to be, and that is certainly a big piece of it, right?
So proud of you, Cindy. So proud of you, Cindy. So proud of you. You rock. August.
It's coming. It's getting closer.
We know it.
every day. She also makes a point. I think this is a really great point too. Transitions do sometimes hurt. What a time to feel this change, learn from them, and become the you are to be. So very true. It's not always easy. And I think that's what a lot of us have experienced, is that, you know, some transitions that we've gone through the last year have been difficult. You know, a lot of us have lost people, you know, or we've dealt with sickness, or we've lost jobs. I mean, these are really difficult transitions when you're in the midst of them. And I think there's a lot, you know, to be said about sort of honoring that, you know, and allowing for that. And just like she was just saying, you know, knowing that there is that space to just be in those moments that are difficult, and to know, you know what, I don't have to love it right now. I don't have to be happy about it right now. I can just go through it and just be, because the transition will come again. And then I'll have the opportunity to look back and take things away from it. But right now I can just be and allow myself that space too.
Absolutely. I learned that in the Untethered Soul, in the fact that you can detach yourself from those experiences and just be. You don't have to be the emotion. You don't have to be that. You can just sit there and say, okay, this is the time that life is going to suck. And I can either have two perspectives about this. I could say life is happening for me, or life is happening to me. And in those transition spots, I personally, when that lady reached out to me and she said, you know, in 4 months, you're going to go through this stuff. And I said, let's do it now. If I'm going to go through something, let's do it now. I'm not going to dance around this stuff anymore. It's like, if I'm supposed to learn a lesson, if I'm supposed to have an epiphany, let's pop the cork on that and let's go. Let's go. Because I mean, that's what's going to move us to the next level. I think of life as a video game, and in some situations you're going to get to level 9 and you're going to be playing Pac-Man and you're not going to be able to get to the next level, but you got to keep trying. You got to keep hustling, because if you don't, then you're going to stay at that level for the rest of your life. And that's the thing that kills me, Pam, is so many people are they're settling for the situation they're in right now versus, you know, really taking responsibility and control over their choices to change that trajectory, to want and willingly introduce a transition into their life that they know they need to make. I know it. I've talked to people and they've been in miserable relationships, and it's like, why aren't you? Well, because of this and because of this and because of that and because of that. I'm like, you're always going to have some of this and some of that. But if you don't make that transition, guess what you're going to have? You're going to have a bunch of regrets. So when I think about transitions also, when you have gone through them personally, when I think about what you've been through, what is like one of the transitions you look back on that at the time you did not want to go through it, but now looking back, it was one of the greatest gifts that you could have had happen to you?
You know, I think one of the biggest challenges I faced in my life was my divorce. I mean, that was something that was so painful for me. You know, one of my dreams was, you know, to have this family life that was just, you know, beautiful. There were things that I really wanted for my kids and for the, you know, just the way that I wanted them to grow up. And it was very hard for that not to materialize, right? But once I worked through that process, and I mean, in all honesty, it took years. I mean, it was definitely not an overnight process for me to get to the point of being able to look back and go, here's what I can take away from that. But eventually I did come to that point. And for me, it was me learning to become more of who I was meant to be. You know, me really coming into that space of ownership of, I've tried to be this person that other people want me to be for so much of my life. And now it's time for me to actually be who I was intended to be. And there's a huge, huge difference between those two things. And so, you know, yeah, I mean, there was so much heartbreak and loss in that. But at the same time, you know, looking back at it, I was able to say, okay, well, something good can still come of this. You know, there are still other people that I can help because I've been through this. Or, you know, even for my son, you know, who had to go through the experience in his own way, you know, he in turn is able to help others now around him that have gone through challenges in their life, you know, and so although I would have never wanted that for him, it's a beautiful thing to see him have the ability to do that and to take responsibility for that in his own life too. So, you know, and I think we all face those times, right? We all have those times where it's like, how could this thing have happened to me? You know, this is like the last thing I wanted to have happen. And yet we get through it, you know, and it's what do we do with it when we come to the other side? What about you? I mean, I know you've had a million and one of your own experiences that you can reflect back on. What would you choose as one of the biggest?
You know what? The one I haven't talked about, it's interesting you say that because I'm going to go with the same thing. I'm going to say with my first divorce. You know, we got married when we were 19. I married her. She was my first real girlfriend after being homeless for 4 years. I was homeless from 13 to 17. I had messed around, but I never really had a girlfriend, much less a girlfriend that really cared about me, that came from the other side of the tracks, that was, upper middle class, really nice. They had that fancy living room that you don't sit in. For me, that was like,
Yeah.
you have rooms you don't sit in? I'm living like 5 guys in a 2-bedroom apartment right now. Holy shit, I can totally make that into my house, after being homeless and sleeping in vans and everything. So long story short, I mean, so we got together and I connected with her. She was such an amazing person. We're still friends. We just texted the other day. So we were married for 5 years. And, obviously from 19 to 23, you're going to go through some stuff. And I realized that's not 5 years, right? No, that's it was, overall 5 years. When we were around 23, that's what happened. We separated for a year and then we wound up getting the divorce later on. But that transition from being Chris and Tammy, everything was Chris and Tammy for those 5 years. And during those 5 years, obviously 19 into your 20s, you're just becoming barely an adult. You're starting to figure out who you are. Granted, my situation was much different than hers, so I felt like I was way ahead on that spectrum as far as being an adult and being grown up. So we had all these friends, we had all this stuff, and it just wasn't going to work out. And when we finally divorced, it was such a lonely period for me. It was a year. Like literally, there was stuff said and some friends took this side, some friends took this side. It was just became an ugly thing. And I just made that determination at I think I must have been 23, 24, something like that I was going to spend this year getting to know me. Because I spent the previous 4 years with my mom being homeless. I spent the previous 12 years going through different sorts of abuse and being picked on, being bullied. So this was the first time in my life for Christopher to spend time with Christopher and figure out who the heck he is. Yeah. And so I didn't hang around anybody. That's when I really started focusing on school. I think that's when I started my bachelor's program through University of Phoenix. So I was taking accelerated classes. I just dove into personal development. I just dove into myself. And it was crazy. And I went through a lot of depression and just like isolation. Like I know she's out having fun and all this other stuff. And here I am broke in my studio apartment trying to figure out my life after all of this other chaos that happened. Right. So when I think back about that transitional year, the biggest lesson that I learned is never lose who you are, never lose your identity. And if you're in a relationship, always have that space to still be the people that you were before you came into that spot. So if you went out and did this and you went out and did this, go out and have fun. Don't be weary of the green-eyed monster. Trust the person that you're going to be with. And so for me, that transition year was super important for me to get to understand myself and to start taking responsibility for loving Chris and pouring into Chris. So when I look back on it, that was one of the best experiences of my life. And for her as well. I mean, she had to go through her growth changes. And now we're both happy in our respective lives. She knows my wife, partied. She's with my ex-best friend that, that happened way back when. So they're together and it's all good. It's all good because it's all happened for a reason. So yeah, I mean, transitions are really opportunities for advancement. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. I was just coaching somebody the other day about that. It's like, look at this. It's like the next 6 months to a year and a half are going to suck, but you're going to go through it anyway. It's going to suck. So just put your hard hat on and go, it's going to suck. But in 6 months, it's going to start feeling better. In a year and 7 months, it's going to feel better. In a year and 8 months, it's going to feel better. In a year and 9 months, it's going to feel better. Be on top of the world and look back on it and go, geez, it was a blip on the fucking radar.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that something that just made me think of too is that, that loneliness piece that a lot of us experience when we're going through transition is something to really be aware of, because I think a lot of times when we get into that kind of space, we forget that we can reach out, that there's other people out there that want to help and support us. There are resources available and we don't have to go through things alone. I just, and I can relate to that because I think I've spent so much of my life trying to do that, trying to transition through things on my own. When looking back, I thought, had I sought this help out a lot sooner, I would have been so much further ahead. And, I think it's like this, innate part of us that's like, I'm just going to get through it, you know? And sometimes I kind of get that. Sometimes it's harder to talk about things than it is to just go on with life too. I mean, I understand for myself that that's something I have to be aware of, you know. I have to work around on my own, you know, time frame. And sometimes it is too, you know, painful, maybe right at the start. You know, maybe we do need to give ourselves some cushion and just allow ourselves to, again, be in that space for a little bit. But just to know in the back of our heads that when we're ready and when we decide to, and on our terms, we can move forward and we can find help and get support along the way too.
Massively important. Reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. I was just talking about that in Clubhouse the other day, and people were just like, what? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You know, but I know for me, and I know some people are guilty of this as well. I know when I'm going through something, I in a weird, sick way, I want to just go through it so I can feel all of it, so that I can understand it, so that later on down the road, I can help somebody else go through that. And I can say, listen, I understand. I understand what it's like to go take a walk every night and convince yourself to stay alive. I know what it's like to sit there and moment by moment, sit there and go, can I make it through this day without taking another pill? Can I make it through this day without taking a drink? Can I make it through this day without taking X, you know, whatever, it's not ecstasy. So, I mean, yeah, it's the beauty and the beast kind of thing, you know? And I look at life as the opportunity of like, no, I don't want to go through anything more tragic. I don't want to go through any other hard times, but at the same time, if we play it safe and we don't jump and we don't experience life and live it, then we're going to have those regrets. And I think, you know, I get so jealous when I see people out there just doing stuff and just taking risks, and they're just like living their life. I'm like, they're going to go and they're just going to have so much fun because they're not worried about whatever transition is next. They know that is going to happen for them and not to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what Cindy says here too. Coaches are very helpful. They help us see within. And 2020 was a great learning period. So I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that, Cindy, because I think that's beautiful. You know, I don't think we think of those things often enough. You know, it's just so easy to kind of get stuck in our old habits, really. I mean, that's really kind of what it is. It's old habits. And we don't consider the fact that, hey, maybe somebody could help me look at this differently, or help me take a different approach that might be more effective for me. And I know for me, coaches played a huge role in my life, you know, and interestingly enough, I mean, I feel very blessed in the sense that the universe kind of brought some of those people into my life when I didn't even realize that I needed them. But I recall one of my coaches in particular saying, you know, at one point, you know, whatever story it is that you're telling yourself, ask yourself, you know, is it possible that there's a different story? And I think that really is at the heart of transition, right? You know, we've got a story that we've been telling ourselves about our situation, whatever it is. And when we come to a transition, then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, my story isn't what I thought it was. And then we've got to start reframing and figuring out, well, what is my story, right? And so I think that question is so beautiful because it opens it up like, okay, so I actually get to decide what my story is. I actually get to create that story. So what do I want it to be? And that to me is super powerful. So I love that you said that. Thank you for sharing that, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy. You're a rock star. We love you.
She also said authenticity versus masks we wear. This is what we were talking about earlier. So much better to be who you are, not what we think others want us to be. 100%.
Speaking to the choir. I was just, that authenticity portion is super important as well as you go through those transitions. But when I think about transitions, Pam, I think about the opportunity for forgiveness. Right? You know, how important is forgiveness in your life in those transitions that you went through?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, I don't think you can go through, you know, something that painful without forgiveness, you know. And for me, forgiving myself was actually the first and hardest piece of that. I mean, it was just, you know, the sense of like, I failed that I had around that situation was it felt monumental to me, you know, at that point in my life. And that it took me a long time to get to the point of going, I think I'm going to be okay with this. And that, you know what, I mean, that just is part of, and I think that can happen differently for different people, right? So some people might be able to look at something and go, okay, yeah, that's not the way I wanted it to turn out. I would have liked it to have been different, but I'm not going to stay in that space, you know, and other people aren't going to be able to do that as quickly. And I just couldn't do it that quickly. It was really a challenge for me. But looking back now, I mean, that was that was part of the learning process for me, to realize I can't control everything. You know, just because I had the best intentions and I did the best I could, you know what? It didn't work out. And that's just the way it was. And to be able to say that doesn't make me a better or worse person. You know, it just is what happened.
It is what it is.
Cindy Waldrop, forgiveness, grace for others, and myself, so important. Yes. Yeah. That's just it. And
go ahead.
And allowing, yeah, and that's the other piece too, is sort of allowing other people to, you know, be who they are in the process that they're going through too, because a lot of times people are, I mean, you know, they're not going to do things the way that you might think they should do them. And just, you know, like being able to step back and let go and just go, you know, I can't worry about you. I can't control you, but I can control me. And I can control what I want to have happen in my own life, and stay focused on that.
Mm-hmm. We are writing our own story every single day with the actions and the choices that we make. And it's up to us to choose that I'm going to write a story where I'm a victorious person who overcomes challenges and defeats negativity, or I'm a person that is going to try to figure it out along the way and hopefully maybe someday get it right. You know, that's the craziness. You know, when I think about forgiveness, for me, I've seen it personally in my life in that situation I was talking about, where forgiveness, both with the situation that happened with my ex-wife and myself and everybody, and then also my situation, my sister and my mother, in both of those situations, both people were super toxic and super sad and super unhealthy because they had held on to the anger for all of their life. And they both of them asked me, like, how do you do that? And I said, I put myself in their situation and gave them grace, and gave them, like you just said, Cindy, gave them grace, gave them empathy for where it was that they are in their journey. And I said, you know what? Karma's gonna, if you're supposed to learn that lesson, karma will deliver that lesson. Meanwhile, me, I'm gonna let go of that stuff and I'm gonna go live my life. So I've seen it personally, literally poisonless kill people by not forgiving and hanging on to that anger. So yeah, I mean, it's such a great topic. We could sit there and go on for hours and pontificate about this, but thank you, Cindy, for being here. Ingram, what's up,
Yes, Joe? Thank you. Yes, Joe is here. He has volunteered to be you if you're tired of being you. So you can look Joe up for that.
What?
And
you're gonna be me?
If you're tired, be me. So you can be Joe if you want to. I guess he'll be you. I think that I'm sure.
I don't know if I want to be a genius. I don't know if I want to go out around with a genius thing on my license plate. This is, I'm a genius.
That's a pretty tall order.
it's like going around saying I'm Mr. Awesome.
And then he says, do or do not. There is no try. So I guess you don't have to try to transition, right? I mean, you just, you do it because you're in the transition. So, I mean, there's something to be said for that.
And
I think we just said it.
Yeah, look at it. Got to be transition. Growing, jumping, leaping, experiencing, living, adventure, play. All of those words.
Exactly. Lynn, glad to have you with us as well. I saw you popped on here earlier and she was amening you, Christopher. So
thank you, Lynn. Love you.
Lynn. Big hugs, lots of love. And thank you all. It's always such a joy. You know, one of the reasons Christopher and I love doing this show is because it gives us the opportunity to connect with all of you. And sometimes when we have guests on, you know, it's super fun because they bring their story to the table too, and we get to share those messages out with you. But sometimes it's great for it just to be us too, and have the opportunity to have these conversations, just engage and enjoy the time with you. So we appreciate you being here with us and sharing your hearts and your lives and your stories with us as well. So Christopher, anything you'd like to kind of close with tonight?
Awesome topic creation, Pam. I think, you know, for the situation here and everything that's going on in the world right now, I would say my final words were, be the change you want to see. And within that, start within yourself. You know, so many people are going out and saying, I want this to happen. I think this should happen. But a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world right now stems from, you know, hurt people. And so the thing I've seen the most, and the thing that I'm advocating the most right now, is if you're hurting inside, please go get help. Please start treating yourself better with love, because if we start with ourselves, that will bleed out into the rest of the world. And perhaps we can all get our collective shit together and be able to harmonize and leave the world a little less messed up than it was when we got here. So that's my words of advice. Love yourself, take care of yourself, invest in yourself, and be the change you want to see out in the world. So yes, Pam, thank you very much. What about you?
So well said. And I completely wholeheartedly agree. And, you know, with that, just do reach out to the people around you. You know, the odds are, I think, even though sometimes we feel like we're alone, we do know that a lot of us are going through a lot of changes right now. And there's probably there could be someone right next door to you that's going through a change. There could be someone in your family that's going through a change. So reach out, support each other too, because sometimes it is when we help other people that we find, oh, you know what, that helped me too. Mm-hmm. So I just encourage you, don't go it alone. It's really important. Make sure that you've got some support, or just at least, reach out to friends if nothing else. So, well, lots of love. With all of that said, again, such a joy to be here. And thank you, Christopher, for sharing this time with me.
Always. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have a beautiful evening, everybody. Love you, Cindy. Love you, Joe. Love you, Lynn, and everybody else. Whether you guys are watching, whether you guys watching live or on the replay, we love you guys. Thank you so much. If you have any ideas for topics you'd like Pam and I to discuss or guests that you'd like to have on the show, please let us know, because we're happy to have those and entertain those for you, because this is a part of the conversation that you are in. So we love you guys.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Peace out.